It's a good piece of media. Like it's accurate. It does a good job of.
That's what I said. It brings. I think it's short enough that it piques your interest. That if you want to know more, there's pieces.
That's why we exist.
That's
yeah.
Right.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Chip. This is Travis, and we are coming to you from the Library and Archives of the Oregon-California Trails Association here in Independence, Missouri. This week, we are watching and reacting to Kevin Costner's new show on the History Channel called The West. Now, this isn't the first documentary to come out titled with the same name as The West. About 30 years ago, where was it? I saw it back here. I had my props ready to go. It's right behind me. Ken Burns made a documentary called The West. It was an 8 or 9-parter. No, it was much longer than that. It was like 12 or 13 hours long. Now we have a new one for the 21st century, thanks to Kevin Costner and the History Channel.
And where if you get in trouble, no one you know is around to help.
So we, as Western expansion historians, experts in the field, are here to share the good, the bad, and everything in between. So today we're actually going to just talk about one episode in particular, the third episode of the series, titled The Oregon Trail.
Overall, I mean, if you're already a fan of Kevin Costner, if you're already a fan of the American West, if you don't like 3, 9, 12-hour long, undigestible bites, this is 42 minutes. It is really kind of that moment right before the Oregon Trail floodgates open. It's that moment in time when the nation is segueing between the end of the fur trade and the beginning of the overland immigrant experience, and in between you had that missionary piece. They really used some prominent talking heads in the American West. I really love that they included Bobby O'Connor, who runs the Umatilla Museum there of the Confederate tribes, that include the Cayuse. I've known Bobby for probably going on 20 years now, and she's always been a very vocal supporter of her people. Bobby just spoke at our conference in Pendleton, Oregon last summer, and
I'll have that linked up here.
Sure, and Chris Enns is in there as well. She talks a lot about women and religion and the trail. If you're with OCTA, there's a lot of familiar faces you're going to see.
This particular episode covers the Whitman mission and their expedition west. So real quick, what is the, kind of Cliff Notes, bullet-pointed story of the Whitmans and their journey west?
The Cliff Notes from the 30,000-foot overview, which I think is what Kevin Costner is trying to accomplish with this. I mean, it's a 42-minute episode. It really focuses on one family or one wagon train's mission to Oregon, literally the mission. They're going out well ahead of the migration, the mass migration. They're there as missionaries. They're heading out in the 1830s, but what they really proved were two kind of important things. One is you could get wagons through almost all the way. They got almost all the way to Blue Mountains. And second, there was a myth in the 19th century that women were not hardy enough to make that trip across the prairies. Narcissa Whitman and Eliza Spaulding disproved that. The other piece of this is I thought Costner did a pretty good job of telling it in a 360-degree angle. You're not just getting the Anglo-centric version that is often the case. You definitely get the sense of this isn't a one-sided story. There is another piece to this, the people who were already there.
Marcus Whitman is not able to save our people.
The Whitmans, and Narcissa specifically, I'm going to mispronounce her name throughout all this. Narcissa. I always say her name wrong. Narcissa. In her marriage to Whitman was a marriage of convenience.
Absolutely.
More so than one of love, because she'd been with, Spaulding had proposed to her before and turned it down.
Which made for awkward travel companions.
I can only imagine.
Yes.
This was during the Great Awakening of the early 19th century, and Narcissa felt called to go west, but couldn't because she was a woman. The church leadership wouldn't allow her. And so, as we said, this was a marriage of convenience for them because now the church was going to finance their expedition west.
Eliza Spaulding had really wanted to marry Narcissa, and she rebuffed him. And Narcissa winds up marrying Marcus as a marriage of convenience. They also send them west with another group of evangelists with, of course, Mr. Spaulding and his new wife, which, as you can imagine, probably made for very strange bedfellows as they headed west because they're bunked down every night for months.
They talk about this in the episode, how Alice, the Whitman's daughter, was conceived on that trip, and there's only one tent for the people, and so we can discern what happened there.
By the time they arrive, I think the blood was so bad that you know,
They didn't even want to be on the same side of the mountain from each other.
yeah, they wind up, 120 miles away. And I will say the Spaldings had a lot more success with the Nez Perce. In fact, the Nez Perce are pretty strongly religious today, probably from the efforts of the Spaldings. They were a little more receptive to the message over there than the Cayuse were.
They got 2 of them.
They got 2.
According to record, yeah, they were only baptized 2 of the locals in the 10 years that they were in the area, almost. Yeah.
Once a year, miles from the edge of American settlement, a temporary city springs up, populated by French, British, and American fur trappers and traders, and hundreds of Native Americans from across the plains.
In this episode, they talk about how the Whitmans stopped at a fur trade rendezvous and were a little taken aback at the debauchery they witnessed there.
Yeah.
Peter Stark, the expert who was talking at the moment, did a very great job of explaining it.
You can imagine with some missionaries showing up at a rendezvous, their mouths must have dropped in utter shock to see what went on.
If you know who Peter Stark is, he's a very lively writer. He wrote on Astoria. He's written on George Washington accidentally starting the French and Indian War. He's written on any number of topics. I believe he's at USC. But he's an entertaining writer, and I thought it was really funny during this part how he was really trying to stifle just laughing out loud at what the Whitmans and the Spaldings likely encountered. You got to remember, these are very conservative, very religious people. And if you know anything at all about the fur trade, especially the rendezvous part of the fur trade, it's basically Mardi Gras. It's drinking and dancing and gambling and, as he said, whoring. It's pretty much everything that good religious people wouldn't be.
People went west for a number of reasons. Freedoms, religious freedoms, financial freedoms, sexual freedoms. It's the past, but people still have a lot of the same emotions and drives and passions and feelings that we do today. It's one of the things we can relate with.
Drinking, gambling, fighting, whoring, the whole thing.
Well, Narcissa does keep a journal, and she does comment on it, and she's not highly impressed. But one of the people that they meet there is a really important piece of this story. That's Joe Meek. We talked about Joe Meek in another episode we did about Meek's Cutoff.
Yes, our
Joe
most
and his
recent
brother
episode
Stephen.
of Historians React was...
Yeah, Joe had 2 brothers who were also involved in the West, Stephen and Hiram Meek, and they're all pretty well renowned in the fur trade era. The fur trade's basically ending. The Oregon Trail settlement is beginning. And so these guys are largely out of work as fur traders, and now they're finding work as trail guides. And so it's Meek who really helps guide them further west past the rendezvous point. Because up till that point, as early as 1830, William Sublette had taken wagons as far as South Pass. They knew the road, at least to the crest of the Rockies, was viable. Nobody had really tried that beyond that, but the Whitmans and the Spaldings proved that was possible.
So the fur traders had to change career due to new technologies, changing in fashions.
Depletion of beaver.
Depletion of beaver.
Yeah.
I was going to make a parallel there, but that's a bit of a stretch. I was going to say, kind of like historians, how we've had to switch from writing our books to giving this to you digitally.
But you can still...
we still write books.
Yeah. Things. And that's that moment in time. A lot of things are going on. Great religious awakening, massive economic downturn, ending of the fur trade, pressures from the east of not having enough money, not having enough land for all the immigrants that are coming in, moving west. Followed closely with that is the Irish potato famine that's pouring numbers of Irish in, that brings with them the cholera that plagues the trails, but then obviously the discovery of gold. These things are all, none of that's happening in a vacuum. They're all feeding off of one another. And I thought Costner's show did a good job of really capturing the flavor of America in the 1830s, really setting up the stage for why these people went west in the first place.
Well, that's a good note to end it on. Thanks for watching, everyone. Please remember to like and subscribe. If you would like to support OCTA, we are a nonprofit, membership-based organization. Always looking forward and wanting to get new members, or one-time donations are always acceptable as well.
And if you want to learn more, our online bookstore is full of books that you can buy and help support our mission of preserving these stories, preserving these trails, preserving these sites. OCTA-trails.org will answer all your questions, or give us a call.